Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chentarot Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayanti Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Tam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, today starting new chapter, chapter 7, the descendants of King Mandhata. So King Mandhata, as we studied, he had 3 sons and 50 daughters, and all of the daughters were married to Saubhari Muni. But the 3 sons were there. So let's study. Next one. So since this chapter also has very little purport, so I'll just go to the translations. So try to cover this chapter. Shukdev Goswami said, the most prominent among the sons of Mandhata was he who is celebrated as Ambarish. Ambarish was accepted as son by his grandfather Yuvanashva. Ambarish's son was Yuvanashva, and Yuvanashva's son was Haritha. In Mandhata dynasty, Ambarish, Harit, and Yuvanashva were very prominent. Text 2. The serpent brothers of Narmada gave Narmada to Purukutsa. Being sent by Vasuki, she took Purukutsa to the lower region of the universe. Before describing the descent of Purukutsa, the son of Mandhata, Shukdev Goswami first describes how Purukutsa was married to Narmada, who was induced to take him to the lower region of the universe. Gandharvan, text 3. There in Rasatal, the lower region of the universe, Purukutsa, being empowered by Lord Vishnu, was able to kill all the Gandharvas who deserved to be killed. Purukutsa received the benediction from the serpents that anyone who remembers this history of his being brought by Narmada to the lower region of the universe will be assured of safety from the attack of snakes. So now we have heard, and so snakes cannot attack us, but that doesn't mean we go near the snakes. Text 4. The son of Purukutsa was Trishadasyu, who was the father of Anaranaya. Anaraya's son was Haryashva, the father of Praruna, and Praruna was the father of Tribandhan. The son of Tribandhan was Satyavrata, who is celebrated by the name Trishanku. Because he kidnapped the daughter of a Brahmin when she was being married, his father cursed him to become a Chandal, lower than Shudra. Thereafter, by the influence of Vishwamitra, he went to the higher planetary system, the heavenly planets, in his material body. But because of the prowess of the demigods, he fell back downwards. Nonetheless, by the power of Vishwamitra, he did not fall all the way down. Even today, he can still be seen hanging in the sky, head downwards. So Trishanku. So by the power of Vishwamitra, very, very powerful sage. And Vishwamitra and Vasishtha, they always had problems. But anyway, Vishwamitra, very highly powerful sage. So he sent Trishanku to heavenly planets. But Indra said, no, he is not qualified. He was coming, Trishanku was coming in his material body to the heavenly. Indra said, no, he is not qualified. He sent him back. Vishwamitra said, no, I'll send you back up. So he got stuck in the middle. So Shloka says he did not fall all the way down. Even today, he can still be seen hanging in the sky, head downwards. I don't know. We cannot see that, but Bhagavatam says. Text 7. Trishankavo Harishchandro Vishwamitra Vasishtayo Yannimitam Abhud Yuddham Pakshinor Bahuvarshikam. The son of Trishanku was Harishchandra. Because of Harishchandra, there was a quarrel between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha, who for many years fought one another, having been transformed into birds. Vishwamitra and Vasishtha were always inimical. Formerly, Vishwamitra was a Kshatriya, and by undergoing severe austerities, he wanted to become a Brahman. But Vasishtha would not agree to accept him. In this way, there was always disagreement between the two. Later, however, Vashishta accepted him because of Vishwamitra's quality of forgiveness. Once Harishchandra performed a yajna for which Vishwamitra was the priest, but Vishwamitra, being angry at Harishchandra, took away all his possessions, claiming them as a contribution of Dakshina. Vashishta, however, did not like this, and therefore a fight arose between Vashishta and Vishwamitra. The fighting became so severe that each of them cursed the other. One of them said, "May you become a bird," and the other said, "May you become a duck." Thus both of them became birds and continued fighting for many years because of Harishchandra. That can happen between the munis also. We can see that such a great mystic yogi as Sobhari became a victim of sense gratification, and such great sages as Vashishta and Vishwamitra became birds. This is the material world. Within this material world or within this universe, however elevated one may be in material qualities, one must suffer the conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease. Therefore, Krishna says that this material world is simply miserable. Bhagavatam says, "Padam padam yet vipadam." At every step here, there is a danger. Therefore, because the Krishna consciousness movement provides the opportunity for the human being to get out of the material world simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, this movement is the greatest benediction in human society. So look at Vashishta and Vishwamitra, great sages, and they're cursing each other to become birds. So good thing in Kali Yuga, because we hardly have any control on our mind and on our tongues. So no matter how much curses we give to each other, they don't work. We are not that powerful. So only thing that will work is if we glorify each other, if we pray to the Lord for everybody's benefit, then that works by the mercy of the Lord. But look at, for Harishchandra, they both fought. And Harishchandra, we know how great a king he was. Harishchandra had no sons, and he was therefore extremely morose. Once, therefore, following the advice of Narad, he took shelter of Varuna and said to him, my lord, I have no son. Would you kindly give me one? Text 9. O King Parikshit, Harishchandra begged Varuna, my lord, if a son is born to me, with that son, I shall perform a sacrifice for your satisfaction. When Harishchandra said this, Varuna replied, let it be so. Because of Varuna's benediction, Harishchandra begot a son named Rohit. Thereafter, when the child was born, Varuna approached Harishchandra and said, now you have a son. With this son, you can offer me a sacrifice. In answer to this, Harishchandra said, after 10 days have passed since an animal's birth, the animal becomes fit to be sacrificed. After 10 days, Varuna came again and said to Harishchandra, now you can perform the sacrifice. Harishchandra replied, when an animal grows teeth, then it becomes pure enough to be sacrificed. When the teeth grew, Varuna came back and said to Harishchandra, now the animal has grown teeth and you can perform the sacrifice. Harishchandra replied, when all its teeth have fallen out, then it will be fit for sacrifice. Text 13. When the teeth had fallen out, Varuna returned and said to Harishchandra, now the animal's teeth have fallen out and you can perform the sacrifice. But Harishchandra replied, when the animal's teeth grow in again, then he will be pure enough to be sacrificed. So normally we have heard Harishchandra was true to his word and everything, so many things. But here in this context, something else is going on. When the teeth grew in again, Varuna came and said to Harishchandra, now you can perform the sacrifice. But Harishchandra then said, O king, when the sacrificial animal becomes a Kshatriya and is able to shield himself to fight with the enemy, then he will be purified. Harishchandra was certainly very much attached to his son. Because of this affection, he asked the demigod Varuna to wait. Thus Varuna waited and waited for the time to come. Rohit could understand that his father intended to offer him as the animal for sacrifice. Therefore, just to save himself from death, he equipped himself with bow and arrows and went to the forest. Text 17. When Rohit heard that his father had been attacked by dropsy, dropsy is a severe disease, attacked by dropsy due to Varuna, and that his abdomen had grown very large. He wanted to return to the capital, but King Indra forbade him to do so. Now, Varuna is in charge of water, he's a deity of water. So, any digestion problems or abdomen problems, it happens because of imbalance of water, and it is controlled by Varuna. King Indra advised Rohit to travel to different pilgrimage sites and holy places, for such activities are pious indeed. Following his instructions, Rohit went to the forest for 1 year. Text 19. In this way, at the end of the second, third, fourth, and fifth years, when Rohit wanted to return to his capital, the king of heaven, Indra, approached him as an old Brahman and forbade him to return, repeating the same words as in the previous year. Thereafter, in the sixth year, after wandering in the forest, Rohit returned to the capital of his father. He purchased from Ajigarth, his second son, named Sunashefa. Then he offered Sunashefa to his father Harishchandra to be used as a sacrificial animal, and offered Harishchandra his respectful obeisances. Prabhupada says, it appears that in those days a man could be purchased for any purpose. Harishchandra was in need of a person to sacrifice as an animal in a yajna, and thus fulfill his promise to Varuna. And a man was purchased from another man for this purpose. Millions of years ago, animal sacrifice and slave trade both existed. Indeed, they have existed since time immemorial. So slave trade was there also at that time, millions and millions of years ago. Animal sacrifice also. But obviously that sacrifice was not like just killing some slave for some sense gratification. No. The sacrifice would be, the Brahmins would be so powerful that if they sacrifice even a human being, the soul would get a nice body right away. Text 21. Thereafter, the famous King Harishchandra, one of the exalted persons in history, performed grand sacrifice by sacrificing a man and pleased all the demigods. In this way, his dropsy created by Varuna was cured. Now, somebody can ask, how can demigods be pleased by sacrifice of a man? No, the sacrifice today is Harinam Sankirtan. But sacrifice in other days, it was a different sacrifice, different yajna they could do. But the purpose was the person who is sacrificed, he gets a new body right away, even in the Yajna-shala itself. Text 22. In that great human sacrifice, Vishwamitra was a chief priest to offer oblations. The perfectly self-realized Jamadagni had the responsibility for chanting the mantras from the Yajurveda. Vasishtha was the chief Brahminical priest, and the sage Ayashya was a reciter of the hymns of the Samaveda. See, all the great sages were there to perform the sacrifice. King Indra, being very pleased with Harishchandra, offered him a gift of golden chariot. Shunashefa's glories will be presented along with the description of the son of Vishwamitra. So Shunashefa was the one who was sacrificed. Text 24. The great sage Vishwamitra saw that Maharaj Harishchandra, along with his wife, was truthful, forbearing, and concerned with the essence. Thus he gave them imperishable knowledge for fulfillment of the human mission. So that is also a great, great story of how Harishchandra and Vishwamitra Muni, there was so much of, as Shloka says, was truthful, forbearing, and concerned with the essence. So that was Maharaj Harishchandra's qualities. Text 25-26. Maharaj Harishchandra first purified his mind, which was full of material enjoyment, by amalgamating it with the earth. Then he amalgamated the earth with water, the water with fire, the fire with the air, and the air with the sky. Thereafter, he amalgamated the sky with the total material energy and the total material energy with spiritual knowledge. This spiritual knowledge is realization of oneself as part of the Supreme Lord. When the self-realized spiritual soul is engaged in the service to the Lord, he is eternally imperceptible and inconceivable. Thus established in spiritual knowledge, he is completely freed from material bondage. So this is how he got the knowledge. And he got it because of Vishwamitra Muni, who was pleased with him. So thus ends the 9th canto, 7th chapter, entitled The Descendants of King Mandhata. We still have time, so we can start the 8th chapter. The sons of Sagar meet Lord Kapiladeva. So this is again a beautiful chapter, but very little purport. So we'll just go with the translation till we come to a shloka with some purport. Text 1. Shukdev Goswami continued. The son of Rohit was Harit, and Harit's son was Champa, who constructed the town of Champapuri. The son of Champa was Sudev, and his son was Vijay. The son of Vijay was Bharuk. Bharuk's son was Vrik, and Vrik's son was Bahuk. The enemies of King Bahuk took away all his possessions, and therefore the king entered the order of Vanaprastha and went to the forest with his wife. Bahuk died when he was old, and one of his wives wanted to die with him, following the sati rite. At that time, however, Aurva Muni, knowing her to be pregnant, forbade her to die. Knowing that she was pregnant, the co-wives of the wife of Bahuk conspired to give her poison with her food, but it did not act. So even at that time, this kind of jealousy and enviousness, because the co-wives, they were going to become sati, and this lady was not. So they wanted to kill her. Although the sage said, no, she cannot be sati because she is pregnant. Jealousy is always there in the material world. So they gave her poison, but it did not act. Instead, the son was born along with the poison. Therefore, he became famous as Sagar, one who is born with poison. Sagar. Sagar later became the emperor. The place known as Gangasagar was excavated by his sons. So Gangasagar, another place we haven't been to yet. So I don't know when we can go there. Sagar Maharaj, following the order of his spiritual master, Aurva, did not kill the uncivilized men like the Talajanghas, Yavans, Shakas, Haihas, and Barbaras. Instead, some of them he made dress awkwardly. Some of them he shaved clean but allowed to wear mustache. Some of them he left wearing loose hair. Some he half shaved. Some he left without underwear, and some without external garments. Thus, these different clans were made to dress differently, but King Sagar did not kill them. Text 7. Following the instructions of the great sage Aurva, Sagar Maharaj performed Ashwamedh sacrifices and thus satisfied the Supreme Lord, who is the Supreme Controller, the Super Soul of all learned scholars, and the knower of all Vedic knowledge, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Indra, the King of Heaven, stole the horse meant to be offered at the sacrifice. So somehow Indra is always afraid of somebody performing sacrifice that, okay, this guy will take up my position and I'll lose my throne. So here also Indra stole the horse. Text 8. King Sagar had two wives, Sumati and Keshini. The sons of Sumati, who were very proud of their prowess and influence, following the order of their father, searched for the lost horse. While doing so, they dug into the earth very extensively. So they were looking for the horse everywhere. Thereafter, in the northeastern direction, they saw the horse near the ashram of Kapil Muni. Here is a man who has stolen the horse, they said. He's staying there with the closed eyes. Certainly he's very sinful. Kill him, kill him. Shouting like this, the sons of Sagar, 60,000 altogether, raised their weapons. When they approached the sage opened his eyes. So Kapil Muni was there, and he just opened his eyes. By the influence of Indra, the king of heaven, the sons of Sagar had lost their intelligence and disrespected a great personality. Consequently, fire emanated from their own bodies, and they were immediately burnt to ashes. The material body is a combination of earth, water, fire, and air and ether. There is already fire within the body, and our practical experience is that the heat of this fire sometimes increases and sometimes decreases. The fire within the bodies of the sons of Sagar Maharaj became so much hotter that all of them burned to ashes. The fire's increased heat was due to the misbehavior towards a great personality. Such misbehavior is called Mahad Vyatikrama. Vyatikrama means it's a great offense, crossing the line. They were killed by the fire of their own bodies because of insulting a great personality. Text 12. It is sometimes argued that the sons of King Sagar were burned to ashes by the fire emanating from the eyes of Kapil Muni. This statement, however, is not approved by great learned persons, for Kapil Muni's body is completely in the mode of goodness, and therefore cannot manifest the mode of ignorance in the form of anger. Just as a pure sky cannot be polluted by the dust of the earth. So Shukdev Goswami is clarifying that it was not that the fire came from the eyes of Kapil Muni that killed the sons of Sagar Maharaj. So they were killed by the heat of their own body. And this is Kapil Muni, who we read about in third canto. He gave knowledge to his mother Devahuti, son of Kardam Muni. Kapil Muni initiated in this material world the Sankhya philosophy, which is a strong board with which to cross over the ocean of nations. Indeed, a person eager to cross the ocean of the material world may take shelter of this philosophy. In such a great learned person situated on the elevated platform of transcendence, how can there be any distinction between enemy and friend? So one who is promoted to the transcendental position is always jubilant, prasannatma, is unaffected by the false distinctions between good and bad in the material world. Therefore, such an exalted person is samah sarveshu bhuteshu. That is to say, he is equal toward everyone, not distinguishing between friend and enemy. Because he is on the absolute platform, free from material contamination, he is called Paratma Bhuta or Brahma Bhuta. Kapil Muni therefore was not at all angry at the sons of Sagar Maharaj. Rather, they were burnt to ashes by the heat of their own bodies. Text 14. Among the sons of Sagar Maharaj was one named Asamanjasa, who was born from the king's second wife, Keshini. The son of Asamanjasa was known as Anshuman, and he was always engaged in working for the good of Sagar Maharaj, his grandfather. Formerly, in his previous birth, Asamanjasa had been a great mystic yogi, but by bad association, he had fallen from his exalted position. Now, in this life, he was born in a royal family and was a Jati Smar. That is, he had the special advantage of being able to remember his past birth. So, Jati Smar, so remembering past birth is not unusual, but not everybody can do that. Nonetheless, he wanted to display himself as a miscreant, and therefore he would do things that were abominable in the eyes of public and unfavorable to his relatives. He would disturb the boys sporting in the river Sarayu by throwing them into the depths of the water. It's just like Jad Bharat. He just didn't want people to come and bother him or respect him. Because Asamanjas engaged in such abominable activities, his father gave up affection for him, had him exiled. Then Asamanjas exhibited his mystic power by reviving the boys and showing them to the king and their parents. After this, Asamanjas left Ayodhya. So Maharaj Sagar was in Ayodhya when he was ruling. Asamanjas was a Jayatismar. Because of his mystic power, he did not forget his previous consciousness. Thus, he could give life to the dead. By exhibiting wonderful activities in relation to the dead children, he certainly attracted the attention of the king and the people in general. Then he left that place immediately. O King Parikshit, when all the inhabitants of Ayodhya saw that the boys had come back to life, they were astounded, and King Sagar greatly lamented the absence of his son. Text 19. Thereafter, Anshuman, the grandson of Maharaj Sagar, was ordered by the king to search for the horse and 60,000 sons. Following the same path traversed by his uncles, Anshuman gradually reached the stack of ashes and found the horse nearby. The great Anshuman saw the sage named Kapila, the saint who is an incarnation of Vishnu, sitting there by the horse. Anshuman offered him respectful obeisances, folded his hands, and offered him prayers with great attention. So beautiful prayers by Anshuman. So I think that we'll cover tomorrow. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Hare Krishna, Babuji. Thank